Hey, it's Dr. Ted and the DR Zed, and today the DR is getting some new tires. I have had enough of the poor uh, off-road traction of the stock trail wings. I've gotten a couple thousand miles out of them. I kind of know what they do now. Now I've got the Shinko 700 series that I'm putting on the front and the back. YouTube, they do this in like 15 minutes. We'll see if I can get it done in the next 2 days. Well, the service manual helpfully says after removing the pinch bolts, I just loosened them, and taking off the axle nut and washer, that you should slide the axle out. How? I don't know. I didn't know. But here's what I'm seeing now. We've got, again, this is on the driver's right-hand side. It's got a hole versus the threaded side. It's got a hex socket in there. You're going to push the threaded side and it will come out on the driver's right-hand side. Like so. Maybe. All right, the wheel is off. That was pretty easy. With the manual, I wouldn't have figured it out without it. Now I'm going to take the tire off. I've already taken out the valve stem, so it's completely deflated. Now I just need to take the tire off the bead on both sides. That actually was super duper easy. And you know what time it is? Baby powder time. What baby powder is used, you coat the inside of the tire with baby powder, the sidewalls and the bottom, so that the tube will slide in more smoothly. So the manual says. So that's what I did. Sprinkled some of that in there, and now we're going to put the tube in. All right, so I've got the tube out. I've got the, now I need to get the old tire off the rim. So what you need to do is take one of your spoons with the curved side down, reach under the outside rim of the tire and just pry it up, and it's gonna slide right off. All right, I put just a couple of 5-10 pounds of air into the tube, just so that it would not pinch and fold over. Now I'm going to take my Windex, lubricate it, and use the spoons to seat the tire. Okay, putting the wheel back on was the hardest thing by a long way. So a couple things. So I have a little stand, and I lifted the bike up. You know, it has one setting, although it's adjustable. There's one down setting and one up setting, so I kind of tried to lift it as high as I could. So that gave me a lot of clearance on the front wheel. I think that was a bad idea. It would be better to have the front wheel just so it's weightless. You know, so the suspension's fully extended and it's not quite touching the ground or just touching the ground, because getting it up, you know, 3-4 inches, as you can see, I can put my hand under here, then having to balance the wheel while trying to get the axle in and the speedo control unit and the spacer, which is a pain in the butt because that kept falling off. It was horrible. So trying to get all those things, plus get the brake disc in the calipers with just me was super no fun. So again, I'd say just get the front wheel off the ground so you can roll it in there, and the ground will, for the most part, help you out, and you can kind of wiggle the bike a little bit to get the axle in. So that was one thing. And the speedo unit, camera here, the speedo unit here. So this cable comes out, and seating it in there, you've really got to shove it in there. And with grease all over my hands from handling the axle, that was really hard. So be prepared. You've got to really push that in there to make that happen. So yeah, but I've got it put back together. So the last couple things I've got to do, I've got to torque down the I've forgotten the name of it, the binding bolts here, and then I need 3 specialty tools I didn't know I needed. I need a 19-inch hex wrench. So it's like an Allen wrench, but it's 19 millimeters across, and none of the local shops have that. So it's only like $5, but nobody's got them. Likewise, on the other side, I need a 40 or 24 millimeter wrench, which comes in the kit, and I had an adjustable, so I was able to take it off, no problem. The problem is I've got to get the torque right, and the only torque wrench I have is for sockets only, so I don't have a torque wrench per se. So I've got to wait for a 24 millimeter socket so I can put it on my torque wrench. And of course, big sockets like that at 24 are 1/2 inch drivers, and I've only got a 3/8 of an inch. I'm so tired. 3/8 of an inch, so I had to get an adapter. So those 3 parts will be here Thursday. So the bike will be assembled, but everything will be torqued down on Thursday. So tomorrow we do the rear wheel. All right, quick update on the rear wheel. The one side came off the bead very easily. The second side, not so much so. I did the same technique and it wouldn't come off, and I tried prying it and it was on hard. So what I ended up doing is I put one of the spoons in between the bead, oops, there, and just tried to push it down just to get that tire off the rim bead. And then there was not really a pop, but a noticeable give. Felt like a clicking. Not distinctly audio, but you could feel it slide off. And then once that happened, the rest of it came off very easily. As you can probably tell from my disheveled appearance, getting the rear wheel on was quite a bit tougher. So for the DR Zed 400S, the front wheel is a 21-inch and the rear wheel is an 18. Doesn't seem like a big deal, right? It is a big deal. Everything's just a lot tighter on the 18. My old fat fingers did not want to get in there. But I got the tire on. The tube was really tricky to get in there. Getting the valve stem through again was really hard. Even harder, actually ended up using a very small pair of needle nose pliers to gently, so as to not screw up the threads, position the tube to go through the rim valve stem hole. It took a long time. I was not very good at it, but I did it. Even a yo-yo can do it. So now it's a little air, get the second side of the rim on, and see if I can get the bead to sit. All right, the tube's on and seated. This is one thing that the front tire, I had a really hard time getting the tire to sit up on the bead. The rear tire, first time, slid on. So I guess that's the trade-off. If it's a looser one, maybe it doesn't seat as well, where a smaller one just slid right in, didn't have anywhere else to go. So now to try to reassemble the axle, and then the bike will be put together. All right, the tires are installed. Not too bad. Took me a few hours, a lot longer than the YouTube video guys who only change the tire and don't have to put it back on. The rear wheel went pretty well. I would also like to give a shout out to the service manual. Absolutely invaluable, really telling you, what to tighten, what to loosen, and torques to use when putting things back on. Which brings me to the most important point. The bike is not ready to ride yet. In fact, the axles have 24 millimeter bolts on them on one end, and on the other end they have a 19 millimeter socket. So both of those are custom tools. Couldn't find them anywhere, so I'm still waiting for those so I can put them back on with my torque wrench. But after that, should be able to ride and see how my handiwork goes. So thanks for watching. I hope other noobs learn something from this, tips, tricks, and to show that any fool, including this one, can change the tires. All right, I'm back. I've got my ridiculous 19 millimeter hex wrench. I've got my equally ridiculous 24 millimeter socket, both of which have half-inch driver adapters. So I got, or half-inch, are set for half-inch drivers. I got an adapter. What I didn't take into account is that I need 2 half-inch drivers for this, so that I can have my torque wrench, which is 3/8 inch, adjust it. I thought I would use that on my the 19 millimeter wrench. This guy, I thought I would put it in here, and I'll control the torque from this side. Unfortunately, that causes the speedometer controller to spin. Not good. So I came up with another solution. 19 millimeter wrench, which I can put over the end of the 19 millimeter Allen wrench, hex wrench. And there's still enough spacing to get it into the axle. So I think with the torque wrench on the other side with my 24 millimeter socket, I'll be able to adjust the front wheel. So let's hope so. Hey there. So I've got everything torqued down. That worked great. A couple quick tips on the front axle. You tighten first the axle down partially, and then you tighten the pinch bolts, and then it says further tighten the axle at 40 Newton meters. I found after I tightened the pinch bolts that the main axle was in fact already tightened there, so I think that's just a double check on that. On the back axle, it's a little tricky because it can slide back and forth because of the chain tensioning. So what I found helpful before I got much torque on there is just take some little clamps and clamp it into the right position. You know, you've got a certain setting and it tends to slip and slide a little bit. So just at the beginning, having that clamp on there just helped until I got a little bit of torque on there to hold everything in place. So that was a really nice little tip. If you had a helper, that would also work, but this worked for me without my helper.